Hello, everybody. This is Carla, and this time I'm here to do a binge report on season 3 of the AXN show Crossing Lines. Now, I already did season 2 last time, and I was really excited because I think this show is really cool, and I think more people should watch it. But at the same time, now that I've seen season 3, I haven't changed my mind. I still love the show. It's just there were a few changes. More than a few. As many of you know, a lot of the cast members went off. The executive producer, Ed Bernardo, also left the show. Now he's only working as a consultant. And it looks and feels very different from the show that it was in season 2. I still like that, though, because I like the new cast. I love Elizabeth Mitchell. I love Goran Visnic. I just think it's a great idea for a show. It did, however, feel very different from where it did. Not so much that necessarily that it was starting from zero, but it was. It's one of those things where you have a whole new team and you have to get them back together somehow. And then you have new people, and you have to go through the whole, getting them to like each other thing again, and it becomes a bit strained in a way, not necessarily in a bad way, but it's more like, okay, we've already done this. At this point we should be over this part, but you have to do it because it's completely different. Like I said, I love Elizabeth Mitchell. I've loved her since Lost. I think she's fantastic, and I really love the style that she has with the team and leading the team. I thought it was very interesting because I was so used to Hickman and Louis. And while Hickman was very much a dad, but he kind of let the people do whatever he wanted, and then Louis was so involved in everything. He was one of those bosses who he would just support you in everything, and always side with you in a way. And Elizabeth Mitchell's Corinne is a bit less permissive. Like she feels more of a boss in a way, and she plays by the rules, which is very interesting. She tries to do things right, and she tries to do things for the right reasons. We don't know much about her yet. We do know that she's a rape survivor, which was very interesting and really does explain that drive that she has to get bad guys in jail. But she's someone who knows how to play with the system. She does everything within the system, not necessarily outside of it. And if she has to tell people on her team not to do something or warn them because they're stretching things a bit too much or something, she will do it. I thought that was interesting, and it definitely a change from Louis's style of managing the team. I love Goran's Marco Constante. I think he's very interesting because he's obviously something who's not really used to working a team. He's more used to leading, but he's been given all these resources for something that he really wants, which is to find his sister. And although they didn't necessarily give him a lot of time for that, there was a first episode and then like the last episode, and that was pretty much all that they mentioned it. It's interesting how somebody can be so obsessed with one case for 30 years or so and still do his job so remarkably. I found it very, very empathetic and almost closer to the stereotype of Italian, passionate Italians than Ava was, which is very interesting. But I like him. I'm glad that we have Sebastian and Arabella back because I like them both. I will always miss Tommy and Ava because they were my favorites, and I have a whole huge headcanon for that. Just if you want to know, just ask me because I totally know what they've been doing this whole time. As far as I'm concerned, like I made up my mind about that by the first episode. But it's good to have Sebastian and Arabella back, and it's interesting to see them continue their arcs. first off, Sebastian with little Eric, which was very interesting. The whole because just because you just learn that you have a kid doesn't mean that you know how to be a father. So it was interesting to kind of see his comings and goings. I wish we could have seen Catherine more because I love her, but hey, I guess there's not enough money in the payroll for that. I'm very very happy with what they did with Arabella, because in the previous season she didn't get much of a focus, because all the other characters were resolving their own arcs from back in season 1 and she wasn't there, so she was only getting established in season 2, and now we see a bit more of her. We know a little bit more of her. I'm so happy that it came out that she's gay, because come on, they needed more representation in that aspect. And I love that doesn't make her any less professional, any less of a detective, and she was totally right to put Luke down the whole freaking time, because yeah, he was out of line. Let's face it. So I was very interested in that. I really like Arabella. She's a great character of a woman who's sure of herself, who doesn't take BS from anybody, and I really love that. As far as the other new additions, Ellie, she's cute. Initially I didn't, much like with Anne-Marie, I initially didn't really see that they were doing much with her, but I liked at the end, because back before, in the first 2 seasons, they didn't have a behavioral analyst of any sort. It was all Higman, basically, and he did that from experience, not necessarily because he was trained or anything. So just the fact that they had Ellie here to be the psychologist, but she wasn't really doing much of anything. She was mostly just searching for stuff online, which is, I don't know, it felt weird because that's what usually Sebastian does. So I didn't really know what her role on the team was going to be, but I like this idea of them bringing up someone so young to give her experience, to train her as well as possible. I love that Karine is so supportive of her, and she did get her, her moment in the last episode. I thought she was awesome. I was expecting them to delve a little bit into her feelings post shooting, but they didn't. So maybe if we get a 4th season, we'll see that happening. But I do think in the end they kind of did give her a little bit of something to do, which is what I was afraid of at the beginning. As far as Luke goes, I know a lot of people don't like Luke. I really like Luke. He's a jerk. Let's face it. He's a jerk, a prick, an asshole of the grandest kind, and he has an ego the size of London. But I like him. At least the dude recognizes his mistakes eventually. I don't think you should just be off put by people straight away until they admit they're wrong and, come out with it. And he did apologize to Arabella, so all is good with me. He learned his lesson, I think. And I like that there's someone on this team that doesn't, he's not about BSing anybody. He will tell you things the way they are. And I like that. I don't know, I guess it's a bit of an acquired taste for most people, but he was fine by me. I hope to see him more because I think he's cool. And I like that they kind of became partners, for real, because before on the team they kind of split up whichever way they had to split up, and I guess, okay, you can see that Sebastian and Ellie are partnered together because they're both, more the cerebral types, and then you have Luke and Arabella, who are more the action-y types, which is awesome, and then you have Karine and Marco, who are kind of the bosses, in a way. So yeah, I like that. As far as changes, though, you gotta admit, that they've moved to this whole different format. First of all, I like the format. I like the opening sequence. I like the song. I don't know if the song fits the show necessarily, but I like it. I love Imagine Dragons, so I'm not complaining. I probably would have pictured something more sinister sounding like the original song, but hey, it's fine. I like the format of like the map when they go from place to place and the map changes and they give you the actual location. I thought they should have done that from the beginning, honestly. I really like that. That said, it's kind of obvious that there's been a shakeup in a way that the show, I mean, they've gone from cases that are like totally criminal cases that just happen to cross borders to cases that are just kind of greater in magnitude and effect but don't necessarily move around as much. Because you can have a case that one episode and they just spend the entire episode in one place with very few location changes other than The Hague. And I thought that was interesting. Not necessarily bad, but interesting. It's kind of the way where you have, like in the United States, you have the FBI and they deal with, cross-state, with crimes across different states. So that becomes the FBI's jurisdiction. And then you also have special cases that just happen to be federal cases, regardless of whether they take place in one state or more than one state. So you have those two different situations, and that's kind of the way it feels going from season 2 to season 3. Season 2 was just cases where they crossed borders, so FBI case 1, and then season 3 is more like, okay, now we're dealing with, I don't know, racism and nuclear bombings and terrorism, and that's kind of like, even if it all takes place in one same location, it's just too big for the local police force to deal with, and so the ICC comes in, which adds a layer of, again, this thing will never happen, because obviously if a case takes place in one city, then the police should take care of it regardless. The ICC just can't just butt in because they're better or because they're higher up or anything. So it adds that bit. But I thought it interesting because it makes the cases seem more grand in scale, which I like. I love that they touched on racism. It's such a one of those themes that just resonates no matter when you're watching this episode. It's happening right now. I love that they touched on nuclear stuff, and although that was, okay, as a scientist, that was a little bit of a stretch, but I like that they touched upon it. I like that they touched upon, embankment of rivers for energy production, because it's something that's happening in my country, so it really resonates with me. I like that the crimes seem bigger, even though they didn't necessarily cross as many borders as expected. I like that they touched on the right wing and, this whole anti-EU feeling that is happening right now in Europe. I like that. On the same thought, though, it did feel a bit more Americanized. It did feel a bit more like your average US-based procedural show in a way. It's like a lot more interrogations, a lot more sitting around discussing what our next step should be. It felt a little bit less open in a way. It felt like a lot of things took place inside the office, and everybody suddenly traveled by chopper. Nobody traveled by train. It lacked a little bit because you got to see fewer locations in each episode. It got to be a bit less of that European flavor. So that's one thing I didn't necessarily like, but it was still good though. I really enjoyed this season. I would like to see the show get another season because I would like to know more about Corinne. I would like to know if Marco's search for his sister goes anywhere, because now I'm really curious, I would like to see more of Arabella and her relationship and her life in general. I would like to see what happens with Ellie, with her father. I mean, this whole thing of her being kind of the prissy daughter of a banker, but she's so much more than that, you know. I'd like to know more about Luke, because as far as we know, we can only really guess that he's maybe had issues with his father. Maybe he was abused or something along those lines, but we don't really know for sure. I would like to know more about Karine. Honestly, I'm kind of shipping Karine and Marco. I would like to see more interaction between the two, and especially what would happen if something happened between them, given how rule-bound Karine is. So I thought that was it was a good season. I think I like season 2 a little bit better, just because the characters felt more like a family. In this one, they were just getting started to get used to each other again. So you kind of lost all that feeling of it being more than a team, more than a family. So I don't know. I would like to see them get another season, just to see the progression of things, because these seasons are so short that you don't really have enough time to make a whole character arc for people necessarily. But I thought it was good. I thought it was a good try, especially after the big shakeup that went down. So I really like this season, and you know, if they make another one, I'll be watching. That's pretty much it. As usual, you guys can visit our website at thegeekypub.com for reviews, not just for the previous Crossing Lines seasons, but also for other TV shows, books, movies, games. We have a ton of stuff in there, so be sure to visit, browse around. I'm sure you'll find something you like. And also, if you guys want to be notified as soon as possible whenever we upload a new review, then you'll want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that's pretty much the fastest way. Just subscribe, and as soon as possible whenever we upload something, then you will see it. Usually before it hits the website, it's up on YouTube, so that's what you need to do. And I will see you guys in my next review. Bye.